When people from around the world visit London, what is one of the first places they want to see?
Hi, this is Andy Teach, host of Andy's Awesome Adventures, and welcome to Buckingham Palace in London, England.
So as you can see, we're at Buckingham Palace, and this was originally known as Buckingham House. And this main building was originally like a large townhouse built for the Duke of Buckingham in the early 1700s, 1703. And it was acquired by King George III in 1761. So back then it was a private residence for Queen Charlotte. And that became known as the Queen's House. Then during the 19th century, this whole palace was enlarged by two architects. One was named John Nash, the other one was named Edward Blore, I think that's how you pronounce it. They constructed 3 wings around a central courtyard. And this became the official residence of the British monarchy once Queen Victoria took power in 1837. And that's probably why her monument and memorial is in back of us. And the last additions to this structure were basically in the late 19th, early 20th centuries, including what's called the East Front, and this is where the balcony is, as you can see, and that's where the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen, comes out once in a while, along with the rest of the royal family.
The guards at Buckingham Palace are on duty for 24 or 48 hours. During that time, a guardsman will have 2 hours on sentry duty and then 4 hours off. A sentry will come to attention every 10 minutes, slope arms, and march across their post, normally about 20 paces in total. Having repeated this 45 times, the guard halts, shoulders arms, and returns to standing at ease. Sentries are not permitted to stand easy while at their post. They may not eat, sleep, smoke, stand easy, sit, or lie down during their tour of duty. You can see my best 2 views to see the changing of the guard Buckingham Palace video by clicking on the link at the end of this video.
This is the Victoria Monument in front of Buckingham Palace. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that is Queen Victoria.
The Queen Victoria Memorial was designed by Sir Aston Webb and formally unveiled by King George V in 1911 in honor of Queen Victoria, who reigned for almost 64 years. It commemorates her death in 1901. It was built by sculptor Sir Thomas Brock from 1906 to 1924. The monument is 25 meters or 82 feet high, which makes it the tallest monument to a king or queen in England, and uses 2,300 tons of white Carrara marble. Londoners sometimes refer to the Victoria Memorial as the wedding cake monument because of its tiered shape. At the top of the central pylon stands a gilded bronze winged Victory, standing on a globe and with the victor's palm in one hand. Beneath her are personifications of constancy, holding a compass with its needle pointing true north, and courage, holding a club. Beneath these, on the eastern and western sides, are 2 eagles with wings outspread, representing empire. Below these, there were statues of an enthroned Queen Victoria, motherhood, sometimes called charity, which features 3 infants, justice, with a sword and helmet, and featuring a weeping nude woman at her feet and a cherub who bears the scales of justice, and truth, who carries a mirror, is crushing a snake under her foot, and which also features a cherub bearing palm leaves. These were created from solid blocks of marble, with truth being sculpted from a block weighing 40 tons. This statue represents England's naval and military power. Military power on the right is a helmeted man with a sword, while naval power on the left is a woman with a light decorative headpiece cradling a small ship. At the 4 corners of the monument are massive bronze figures with lions, representing peace, progress, agriculture, and manufacture. Brock described the symbolism of the memorial, saying that it was devoted to the, quote, qualities which made our queen so great and so much beloved, end quote. He added that the statue of the queen was placed to face towards the city, while flanked by truth and justice, as he felt that, quote, she was just and that she sought the truth always and in circumstances, end quote. Across the street from the palace, we can see more ornate gates, and behind the gates is Green Park, which is where we walked through to get here. So if you're coming to London, make sure that Buckingham Palace is high on your list. And once you're here, maybe you can get a photo with the London Bobby too. St. Paul's Cathedral is an Anglican cathedral, the seat of the Bishop of London, and the mother church of the Diocese of London. Its dedication to Paul the Apostle dates back to the original church on this site, founded in 604 AD. In fact, this is the fifth cathedral on this site since 604, and it was built from 1675 to 1711. The cathedral's English Baroque style and large dome make it recognizable for miles around.
Hi, this is Andy Teach, host of Andy's Awesome Adventures, and welcome to St. Paul's Cathedral in London, England. So the reason I love St. Paul's Cathedral is it reminds me of old London. It was built in the 17th century after the Great Fire of London, which was in 1666. It was designed by the architect Sir Christopher Wren, who was also buried here. And it is known for a number of things. One is the dome. It's one of the tallest domes in the world. And this was the tallest building in London for over 250 years. Now inside, there was some various funeral services for dignitaries like Margaret Thatcher, Sir Winston Churchill, Princess Diana, and Prince Charles were married here. Besides Admiral Nelson and a few others that are buried here, my favorite is actually Sir Alexander Fleming. Now you might not recognize the name, but he discovered penicillin. So I'm going to go inside and pay homage to Sir Alexander Fleming.
Now before we see more of the exterior of the cathedral, let's take a look at the beautiful ornate interior. Back in Elizabethan times, Paul's Walk was the name given to the central nave of Old St. Paul's Cathedral, where people walked up and down in search of the latest news. Newsmongers, as they were called, gathered there to pass on the latest news and gossip at a time before the first newspapers. Those who visited the cathedral to keep up with the news were known as Paul's Walkers. The dome is among the highest in the world, and it's actually a three-dome structure. It's the second largest cathedral dome in the world, weighing approximately 65,000 tons. The mural on the dome is of St. Paul shipwrecked in Malta by James Thornhill. This statue honors British naval hero Admiral Horatio Nelson, who lost an eye and his right arm in battle. He was killed at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, and you can see his sarcophagus a little later in the video when we visit the crypt. The grand organ was originally built and installed in 1695 and has been rebuilt several times, most recently in 2008. It's the third largest organ in the UK, with 7,189 pipes and 5 keyboards. Queen Victoria, who reigned over England from 1837 to 1901, once complained that St. Paul's Cathedral was, quote, dull, dingy, and undevotional, end quote. As a result, the colorful mosaics were installed between 1896 to 1904. The present high altar dates from 1958 and is made of marble and carved in gilded oak. The canopy was based on a sketch by Sir Christopher Wren, but it was built after he died. This one replaced a large Victorian marble altar and screen, which was damaged by a bomb strike in World War II. On top of the altar is a gilded statue of Jesus. Behind the high altar is the American Memorial Chapel, also known as the Jesus Chapel. This part of the chapel was destroyed by the Blitz in World War II, and it was decided to build a memorial to the 28,000 Americans stationed in the UK who were killed in World War II. The Chapel of St. Erkenwald and St. Ethelburga is also known as the Middlesex Chapel. The Middlesex Chapel is home to members of the Middlesex Regiment. Behind the altar stands William Holman Hunt's famous Light of the World painting. Quote, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." End quote. This sermon in a frame became the most traveled artwork in history. On completion in 1904, it toured the globe. It had been seen by millions of people and is one of the best-known works of its period. The beautiful Renaissance-style frame which surrounds and supports the painting took several months to create and is the work of 2 female artists. This is the OBE Chapel, also known as St. Faith's Chapel. The original St. Faith's was a parish church attached to the old cathedral destroyed in the Great Fire of London. In 1960, this chapel became the spiritual home to the Order of the British Empire. The OBE was instituted by King George V in 1917, initially to recognize the large civilian contribution to the war effort during World War I. One million people watched the funeral procession of Arthur Wellesley, 1st Duke of Wellington, to St. Paul's Cathedral in 1852. He was a soldier, statesman, and former prime minister who defeated Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. His casket is made of Cornish granite, and his memorial took longer to build than the cathedral itself. Admiral Nelson originally laid in a coffin made from the timber of a French ship he had defeated. This black marble sarcophagus was originally made for a 16th century dignitary who fell out of favor and remained empty until a suitable person could be found. Alexander Fleming's ashes are buried right below here. Whoops, a little dark. There's an AF there, Alexander Fleming. That's where his ashes are buried. This is the west front of St. Paul's Cathedral. Francis Bird carved this statue of Queen Anne. Near the top of the southwest tower is a clock, which was installed in 1893. Above the clock inside the tower hangs Great Tom, the hour bell, and Great Paul, the largest bell ever cast in the UK. The 2 western towers are topped with a pineapple, a symbol of peace, prosperity, and hospitality. The triangular relief depicts the conversion of St. Paul to Christianity. Above it stands the figure of St. Paul himself, flanked by other apostles and the 4 evangelists. This was also the work of Francis Bird between 1718 and 1721, who was greatly influenced by Rome's church architecture. In the cathedral's northeast churchyard, the column with the gilded statue of St. Paul features this plaque, which marks the location of St. Paul's Cross, a popular center of news and comment, where during the Reformation, William Tyndale's New Testament was burned because it was in English, and where generations of Londoners played their role in developing public opinion. The column also commemorates the public preaching of the Christian faith in this location. Hi, this is Andy Teach, host of Andy's Awesome Adventures, and welcome to the Tower Bridge in London, England.
All right, we are here on the London Bridge. And what you're about to see, some people think is the London Bridge. But that is not the London Bridge. That is the Tower Bridge. The Tower of London, where the crown jewels are. And then, to the right, the very famous Tower Bridge in all its glory. There's one of the typical London double-decker buses going across the Tower Bridge.
The Tower Bridge is a bascule or movable suspension bridge built between 1886 and 1894. The bridge consists of two bridge towers tied together at the upper level by two horizontal walkways. The bridge deck is accessible to both vehicles and pedestrians, whereas the bridge's twin towers, high-level walkways, and Victorian engine rooms form part of the Tower Bridge exhibition, which we will see in a few minutes. The high-level open-air walkways between the towers gained a reputation as a location for prostitutes and pickpockets, as they were only accessible by stairs that were seldom used by regular pedestrians and were closed in 1910. The walkway reopened in 1982 as part of the exhibition. In the second half of the 19th century, increased commercial development in the East End of London led to demands for a new river crossing downstream of London Bridge. A traditional fixed bridge at street level could not be built because it would cut off access to sailing ships to the port facilities between London Bridge and the Tower of London. A special bridge committee was formed in 1877, chaired by Sir Albert Joseph Altman, to find a solution. More than 50 designs were submitted. A design was not improved until 1884, when it was decided to build a movable bridge. Sir John Wolfe Barry was appointed engineer and Sir Horace Jones the architect. He was also one of the judges. An Act of Parliament was passed in 1885 authorizing the bridge's construction. It specified the opening span must give a clear width of 200 feet or 61 meters and a headroom of 135 feet or 41 meters. Construction had to be in a Gothic style. Construction started in 1886 and took 8 years with 5 major contractors and employed 432 construction workers. E.W. Crutwell was the resident engineer for the construction. Architect Jones died in 1887, and George D. Stephenson took over the project. Stephenson replaced Jones's original brick facade with the more ornate Victorian Gothic style, which makes the bridge a distinctive landmark and was intended to harmonize the bridge with the nearby Tower of London. The total cost of construction was over £1,100, equivalent to £136 million today.
We are about 100 feet up in the Tower Bridge. This is the view on one side. And then on this side, we can see the River Thames. Alright, I'm gonna step on the glass, but I'm gonna hold the railing in case it breaks. Oh my god. I'm holding. Oh, I don't like doing this. Oh god. It's hard to look straight down getting good. Oh no, look out. How thick is the glass?
It's about 8 centimeters, about 4 inches.
4 inches. Okay. Anyone fall through yet?
No.
Good. Okay. Let's keep it
You can be the first.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm trying not to.
8 centimeters.
You want me to walk on it?
Yeah, you need to lay down on it.
I'm not laying down on it.
Oh, come on.
I gained some weight on this trip. I gotta be careful. Okay.
Check in front of you, no. Put your camera down. Videotape.
Alright.
Feet down like that, and then look up front. Walk front. But your pants are wet.
I do not. They're not wet. I don't like heights. One more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Oh, barge coming through.
Two massive piers containing over 70,000 long tons of concrete were sunk into the riverbed to support the construction. More than 11,000 long tons of steel were used in the framework for the towers and walkways, which were then clad in Cornish granite and Portland stone to protect the underlying steelwork. The original raising mechanism was powered by pressurized water stored in several hydraulic accumulators. Water was pumped into the accumulators by a pair of stationary steam engines. In 1976, the original operating mechanism was largely replaced by a new electro-hydraulic drive system. Oil is now used in place of water as the hydraulic fluid. A computer system was installed in 2000 to control the raising and lowering of the bascules remotely. It proved unreliable, resulting in the bridge being stuck in the open or closed positions on several occasions during 2005 until its sensors were replaced.
Started that, and even they cook their breakfast up here in the morning. Water welded on the LC and everything, keep them running. It's not quite needs cooking at the same time. For sure, the best part about the 3 years.
The bridge is up. Tower Bridge. They did have a schedule of when the bridge would be going up, and it was at least twice today. So there it is.
The central span of 200 feet or 61 meters between the towers can be raised to an angle of 86 degrees to allow river traffic to pass. The bascules, weighing over 1,000 tons each, are counterbalanced to minimize the force required and allow raising in 5 minutes.
The boater ship went through, and now the gates are coming down.
The bascules are raised about 1,000 times a year. River traffic is now much reduced, but it still takes priority over road traffic. Today, 24 hours notice is required before opening the bridge, and opening times are published in advance on the bridge's website. There is no charge to vessels for opening the bridge. This fortress is full of English history. Whoever controlled it controlled the country. It has served as an armory, a treasury, a menagerie, the home of the Royal Mint, a public record office, the home of the crown jewels of England, and a prison where executions were performed.
Hi, this is Andy Teach, host of Andy's Awesome Adventures, and welcome to the Tower of London in London, England.
The Tower of London is located near the Tower Bridge and is officially named Her Majesty's Royal Palace and Fortress of the Tower of London. It's an historic castle founded toward the end of 1066 as part of the Norman conquest of England. The White Tower, which gives the entire castle its name, was built by William the Conqueror in 1078 and was a resented symbol of oppression inflicted upon London by the new ruling elite. It was known as the Great Tower until the 13th century, when Henry III ordered it to be whitened inside and out, and thus it was known as the White Tower. It dominated the skyline for miles around. The castle was used as a prison from 1100 until 1952, although that was not its primary purpose. A grand palace early in its history, it served as a royal residence. As a whole, the tower is a complex of several buildings set within 2 concentric rings of defensive walls and a moat. There were several phases of expansion, mainly under Kings Richard I, Henry III, and Edward I in the 12th and 13th centuries. From the early 14th century until the reign of Charles II, a procession would be led from the tower to Westminster Abbey on the coronation of a monarch. In the absence of the monarch, the constable of the tower is in charge of the castle. This was a powerful and trusted position in the medieval period. Under the Tudors, the tower became used less as a royal residence, and despite attempts to refortify and repair the castle, its defenses had issues dealing with artillery. You may recognize this uniform. It belongs to the Yeoman Warders of Her Majesty's Royal Palace and Fortress the Tower of London and members of the Sovereign's Bodyguard of the Yeoman Guard Extraordinary, also known as the Beefeaters. They are ceremonial guardians of the Tower of London. In principle, they are responsible for looking after any prisoners in the tower and safeguarding the British crown jewels. They have also conducted guided tours of the tower since the Victorian era.
We're about to start our self-guided tour of the Tower of London.
Byron Tower is the main entrance for tourists. It's the great gateway of the outer ward and was built by King Henry III from 1238 to 1272 to add additional defense to the castle. In 1381, it was reinforced by Richard II following a peasant revolt.
That is the Bell Tower from 1190.
The bell tower is the second oldest tower, and it contains the curfew bell. This was part of Richard I's enlargement of the fortress in 1190. St. Thomas's Tower was built by Edward I between 1275 and 1279 and restored in the 1860s. Traitors' Gate is an entrance through which many prisoners of the Tudors arrived at the Tower of London. The gate was built by Edward I to provide a Watergate entrance to the tower, part of St. Thomas's Tower, which was designed to provide additional accommodation for the royal family. The name Traitors' Gate has been used since before 1543. Prisoners were brought by barge along the Thames, passing under the London Bridge, where the heads of recently executed prisoners were displayed on spikes. Notable prisoners such as Sir Thomas More entered the tower by Traitors' Gate.
And across the way is the Bloody Tower.
The Bloody Tower was originally built as a water gate by Henry III, and it became a land gate after 1280. The tower was improved by Edward III in 1360. It derives its name from the 1560s, when two princes are believed to have been murdered by their uncle Richard III in the upper chamber. Important prisoners were also detained here, including two archbishops of Canterbury and Sir Walter Raleigh.
And we are going to start by going to the Crown Jewels, which I believe is the highlight of this tour.
Oh, he's already, look, he's off. He's off. He's cannon fodder. He's supposed to take the jewels with him.
The Jewel House was the department of the Jewel Office until 1782. The crown jewels have been kept here since 1661. In fact, there are a total of 23,578 jewels. Unfortunately, filming and photography are prohibited, and I did not want to cause an international incident, but the highlights are the coronation regalia, St. Edward's crown, the sovereign's orb, the jeweled sword of offering, the sovereign's scepter and rod, and the imperial state crown. Wakefield Tower was built from 1220 to 1240 and was named after William of Wakefield in 1344. It is the second largest tower in the Tower of London complex, and its walls are much thicker than the other towers, as it was built by Henry III to house his private apartments and to protect the inmost ward. The peak period of the castle's use as a prison was the 16th and 17th centuries, when many figures who had fallen into disgrace, such as Elizabeth I before she became queen, Sir Walter Raleigh, and Elizabeth Throckmorton, were held within its walls. This use had led to the phrase "sent to the Tower." Despite its reputation as a place of torture and death, only 7 people were executed within the tower before the World Wars of the 20th century. Executions were more commonly held on Tower Hill to the north of the castle, with 112 occurring there over a 400-year period. In the First and Second World Wars, the tower was again used as a prison and witnessed the executions of 12 men for espionage. After the Second World War, damage caused during the Blitz was repaired and the castle reopened to the public. The line of kings was first put together between 1688 and 1692 after the Board of Ordnance, who were mainly concerned with arming the army and navy, decided to create an exhibition promoting the Stuart monarchy. They created the exhibition called the Line of Kings, which featured royal armor and life-size wooden horses and wooden royal figures made by several of Britain's best woodcarvers. The exhibition was originally at another location inside the Tower of London. Line of Kings was a propaganda statement. It featured good kings like Edward III and Henry VIII, but excluded bad ones such as Edward II and Richard III. When this new exhibition opened, it was both historical and topical. Some visitors would have remembered the execution of Charles I in 1649 and the restoration of Charles II in 1660. There are many other pieces made for noblemen as well as for common soldiers. Queens and less popular monarchs were left out, as they didn't play a part in this royal message to early tower visitors. Over the centuries, the line of kings has been rearranged a number of times. St. John's Chapel was a private chapel of the king who was living in the White Tower since 1100. However, by the 13th century, it became a place to store historic documents. Once these documents were sent to the new Public Record Office, the chapel was restored in the 1860s and went back to being a place of worship. The Beauchamp Tower was built around 1281 during the reign of Edward I as part of the tower's inner defensive wall. The tower takes its name from Thomas Beauchamp, Earl of Warwick, who was imprisoned here at the end of the 14th century for rebelling against Richard II. The building has been used to house prisoners throughout its history.
Well, we're still in the Tower of London, and this is where some of the executions took place.
What did you do? Oh, didn't she,